A lot of Colts on the Vikings, a lot of Vikings on the Colts. So let's talk to Locked On Colts. Welcome to a crossover on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Indianapolis Colts and Minnesota Vikings have done a ton of unintentional work together this offseason, as 5 players have switched from one team to another. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts and Minnesota Vikings, a special crossover offseason edition. Normally
why not?
we're used to doing a crossover before the Vikings, get to embarrass the Colts on national TV a couple times in recent future.
I don't. So that happened last time, but that snapped, or the 33-0 thing snapped like a 6-game losing streak against, like a 20-year losing streak against the Colts. So it's still weird. Don't worry too much about it.
It really sparked a nightmare of a season for the Colts. It was already going poorly. They won a game, and then the Vikings game happened. But yeah, so there's been a lot of Colts and Vikings cross-pollination this offseason, if you want to call it that. So Jake Arthur here, host of Locked On Colts, joined by Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings. And we're going to break a lot of this stuff down. So the Vikings have rebuilt their interior offensive line by signing former Colts Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. They even signed former Colts cornerback Isaiah Rodgers as well. And then the Colts, they picked up backup quarterback Daniel Jones, as well as new starting free safety Cam Bynum. And that's where we'll start today. So Cam Bynum, was one of the better safeties on the market. You're really talking about Javon Holland, Bynum, Tolonoa Hufanga. Not a lot of huge names out there, but Bynum was definitely one of the bigger ones, and his contract reflects it. 4 years, $60 million, including $32 million in guarantees, Luke. This, on the surface, looks like a really good pickup for the Colts. Moving over to Lou Anarumo's defense, where we've heard all about how important the play of the free safety is. He used to have Jesse Bates there in Cincinnati, and things really started kind of go sour once Bates was shown the door there in free agency a couple years ago. So what can you tell us about Bynum, and, what are really his strengths? Because a lot of positive vibes coming out from this, but obviously no one is a perfect player.
Of course. So in Minnesota, we love Bynum. Very sad to see him go. I spent the whole offseason being like, you got to re-sign this guy. So I'm bummed to see it go. I think it was just a priorities thing. They wanted to prioritize Byron Murphy. They spent their money on other D tackles, a couple of O-linemen from you guys. And so Bynum was kind of the odd man out there, but very much it was a money thing. Everybody in Minnesota loves him, and it's like emotional to see him go, especially Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus. Those 3 were peas in a pod. So I think like the biggest, like I'm starting with this because I think it's the most impressionable thing about him is his like vibe as a locker room guy. That man is a ray of sunshine. That man has the most infectious smile I have ever seen. He was like the dance coordinator, all the funny dances the Vikings did all year. That was him. He did that. And I am going to kind of assume he's going to keep trying to do it. He has this thing where he says his life is a movie. So he says movie every time he gets like an interception. You'll get used to it. It's very, very fun. But the guy is just a huge, huge beacon of positivity, which I think goes pretty well in just about any locker room. On the field, actually, from a football perspective. Good cover safety. He was not always the guy in the box. He can fit the run. He can do okay there. I think he's not like his strength is not necessarily, as the like getting, facing the fan, go scream off the edge, blitz, that kind of stuff. Box safety definitely did a lot more coverage role, but in a Brian Flores defense, you have to do a little of everything. So the skill set is reasonably versatile, but he's at his best playing half safety, quarter safety, rules of coverage. There's a story I remember from a couple years ago. The Vikings played the Jets, and the game ended on an interception. This wasn't last year. This was like 2022. They played the Jets, and Cam Bynum got a game-sealing interception with the Jets driving to take the lead. It went exactly the same as the London game last year, if y'all watched that. and Cam Bynum got it. And then he posted on social media his like notes about exactly seeing a double post coming. If I'm the inside safety, I can jump the outside post and get an interception. It's like exactly what he did. And he wrote it up on like Tuesday being like, this is going to be an interception opportunity. So he's heady is I guess what I'm getting at there. Smart corner, knows how to study tape, knows where he's supposed to be, precise with where he's supposed to go. He's going to be a guy that like, okay, veteran, not going to be your issue on the back end. Athleticism is totally fine. I think where he's at his worst is like runs that get into the second level and then he's got to like come up and fit. There's a couple of like really nasty whiffs on his tape. But even his rookie year when Mike Zimmer was still here, he got an absolutely dastardly pick on Lamar Jackson. And in a game in Baltimore that kind of put him on the map here. And he basically locked down the starting job from the next year onward. So yeah, good, solid veteran safety, good cover player, plays smarter than he does athletic. But I think maybe one of his big strengths is kind of the lack of like a debilitating weakness. I don't, unless you got Jahmyr Gibbs coming up the B gap for free and he, one-on-one, but that's like an impossible spot for safeties.
Right.
So I'm also like kind of sympathetic about that. I don't know. I just love the guy. I'm really sad to see him go.
That honestly seems like an exact reflection of kind of what the vibes are here as well. The Colts introduced him to the media earlier in the week. And yeah,
I thought he was a superstar in that.
Oh,
yeah.
Infectious personality is exactly how I would describe it. We were all like, okay, that's us in the media room. We're like, that's going to be our guy we want to go talk to, no matter the situation. Yeah.
He's one of those guys, and I think he gets it from Harrison Smith a little bit too. I think it rubbed off on him and Josh Metellus, like that whole safety room. He will, like, after a tough loss, he will chill in the locker room with you. Like he will be like, just a good dude, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he talked about the celebrations and stuff. And what I really liked was a lot of guys, like we've heard Anthony Richardson before explain celebrations leading up to the week, and it almost sounded like, oh, so this is what you were focusing on in the week leading up. But with Bynum, he was like, you earn the right to have fun on Sundays by all the hard work you put in throughout the week. And it's like, it's like a small footnote, a quick thing we talk about maybe during the week. But you don't get to earn that type of celebration unless you put in the hard work throughout the week, which created a big play on Sunday, basically. So, he talked about leadership and the value of setting a good example for everybody and putting your best foot forward like every day. And I'll be honest with the Colts, it got kind of toxic there during the season, especially late with, talks about guys getting complacent and not putting in effort and just kind of leading to the downfall of the Colts in the second half of the season. And it seems like Bynum is like the perfect injection of a leader, a player on the field, because you have to have good players too, but a leader on and off the field and just a good player that you put in that locker room. You don't have to worry about anything anymore.
Yeah, that should help. And yeah, I know you guys are going through something there. But I think of all the 11 guys on the defense, he's not going to be, because he's going to be doing a deep responsibility a lot of the time. He's not going to be in on every play. He's not going to be the focal point, but he is a guy you don't have to worry about. And with a defense that is coming from a place of struggling sometimes on the back end, I think that's a godsend for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's been times when, before when Gus Bradley was the defensive coordinator, where there would just be miscommunications and coverage between like the corner and safety, not knowing whether they were in man or zone.
That's always tough.
The safety was picking this guy up. And it sounds like, especially more single eyes situations, that just won't really have to be much of a concern with a guy who always understands the role with Bynum.
Yeah, and can maybe even take a leadership role and, bring along like any young D-backs or whatever, you guys got going.
Yeah, seems like a pretty good fit there with DeForest Buckner. So, all right, guys, here in a moment, we're going to shift focus. There are some former Colts that are now going to be calling Minnesota home. We will get to that in just a moment. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful, and that's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Gametime Picks, their curation makes it easy to find better value for tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. I've used Gametime several times for concerts, and it's by far been the best experience I've had with buying tickets. I just actually checked the Gametime app, and there's amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up. The lowest price guarantee means Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find better tickets somewhere else for pretty similar seats. That's how confident they are that you're not going to find a better deal. They've also bring you peace of mind with seat views before you buy. There's no surprise fees and their lowest price guarantee. You could book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so the Vikings have pretty much remade the interior of their line. Garrett Bradbury is out the door, and they have brought in veteran center Ryan Kelly and right guard Will Fries. Fries, for a lot of people, was the top interior offensive lineman, even out there in free agency after Trey Smith was tagged by the Chiefs. So, first off, congratulations, you guys got a couple of good ones there. But
yeah, am I right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like stoked. I went and watched. I'm stoked on these guys.
Yeah, especially Fries. So Fries, 5-year deal, 88 million, essentially, very much earned that deal. For most of us covering the Colts, we said that should be the Colts' top priority is bringing Fries back. I talked to people in the organization who definitely wanted him back. The Colts wanted him back, but that price was just probably a little much, especially when you have to allocate a little more money for another quarterback to come in and battle. And you've already got a lot of money tied into the offensive line. Like Quentin Nelson, probably next year is going to be signing an enormous extension. Braden Smith was making nearly 20 million. They've got Bernard Ryman that's going to be coming up on an extension as well. So they wanted Fries back, but at that price, that was going to be kind of tough for them to do. Ryan Kelly, he, 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. He's had a very distinguished career, very good leader. Is always going to have everyone on assignment. The only concern I had with him was injuries. He's had a couple big concussions. He's had a stint on IR with the knee last year. So very, very good player when he's on the field, but you got to worry about injuries, and he's like 32. If the Colts wouldn't have drafted Tanner Bortolini last year already, I think everyone would have been pretty much on board with Ryan Kelly coming back. Because again,
so you have a successor like in house.
Yeah, they already drafted his successor there, so the writing had been on the wall for the last several weeks with Kelly. But he is perhaps on the Mount Rushmore or a very honorable mention of Colts offensive linemen. Their offensive line was absolute trash until they drafted him with in the first round back in 2016. Was the Colts' longest tenured player. Had been there before even Chris Ballard. And so bringing him in and then bringing in Quentin Nelson a couple years later, those two together really shifted what the Colts offensive line had been, because it was pretty awful. Ever since, Peyton Manning leaves, the line just goes through a tailspin. And then not until those guys coming in, they really kind of changed the culture here in Indy. So Ryan Kelly, I do still think there's probably another good season or two of football left in him. But it just wasn't going to work out with the Colts anymore.
I feel that. So I guess my understanding is that Ryan Kelly is here to kind of be to be a placeholder for a couple of years while the Vikings figure out their like long-term solution at center, whether that's drafting someone this year or, in the future, whatever. I'm not familiar with the center class at all. Maybe I should get familiar with it because I think they're going to draft somebody high soon. One thing that really stuck out to me though is how those two guys play together. With passing off stunts or double teams. So is that it's nice to be next to Quentin Nelson thing, or is that, like how much did being next to Quentin Nelson make those guys look good versus how much of it was really like on their own merits?
I would say all those guys individually have plenty of positive things to take home with them. Nelson obviously is as advertised, but those three work together as one brain, if that makes sense. There's a lot of continuity on the Colts line. although a lot of injuries had different lineups coming in and out, those three together really had things working well. And I think being next to Kelly, for example, has really brought out the best in Will Fries. Um, Became a starter about midway through 2022 and has gotten consistently better each year. I spoke to someone in the organization who thought he was their best offensive lineman last year up until he got hurt in I
Hmm.
think week 5, had that leg
Yeah.
break.
And are you
But it
worried about
was
that, by the way, while we're on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, it was a nasty injury, gruesome injury, but it's a leg break at the end of the day, lower leg
Yeah.
break.
Not a knee, not a ligament, not an ankle,
Yeah, and
not a hamstring.
the Colts having the best medicals on him possible wanted him back.
Okay.
So I don't think they were super worried about that being an issue. I've seen him walking around the locker room like during locker cleanout day. It didn't seem like a
Mm.
huge issue or anything. So especially if the Vikings are going to give him
Mhm.
a deal that big, you would imagine they're pretty confident in it. But no,
Yeah, for how
he's
well they can know it, but yeah. They're signing,
very
like, all the injured players, so they're like, "All right, medical staff,
that's something
go
the
ahead."
Colts tend to do as well, especially in the draft. But no, I think Fries, knowing that the Colts wanted him back and knowing the Vikings were willing to give him that big a deal, I'm not really worried about it. I mean, he's definitely a young ascending player that should be there the duration of that 5-year contract. Kelly, 2 years, if you get those 2 years out of him and he's able to stay healthy, you're gonna have an upgrade there on the offensive line. He's a very smart run blocker, is able to get out and do a lot of good stuff in the zone. Probably doesn't have like the power and anchor that he once did, but he's very good on the move. Again, very, very smart player. So he'll have those interior guys playing like they need to be.
So, another guy that I wanted to ask you about is Isaiah Rodgers. He's coming from the
Mhm.
Eagles, but he only spent 1 year there. And I know he had, like, the suspension, so I don't know how Colts fans feel about this guy, but there is a real like, I would even call it probable that Isaiah Rodgers is like an every down starter for the Vikings. I mean, camp competitions notwithstanding, the draft, lots can change, but as it stands right now, he's at the very least competing for a job with Mekhi Blackman, but possibly might even have an easier path to it than that if the Vikings don't go there in the draft. So, what can you tell me about Isaiah Rodgers? When I watched him, I saw kind of a ho hum outside corner, but can you give me any more details?
Yeah, so he's a nice young player from when he was with the Colts. He's kind of polarizing in the fan base. Like as a player,
Right, because of suspension,
everyone's
yeah.
yeah, as a player, everyone's on board, but like he had the betting suspension and the
Mhm.
details from that, if I remember correctly, there was like over 100 bets placed. I think there were some placed within the Colts facility, and he didn't really have much remorse about it, almost like he was the victim in it, which
Yeah.
became kind of annoying and quickly kind of turned some people off to that. But he is outside of that, he's a fun guy. Like you've seen him on social media celebrating the Eagles Super Bowl stuff. So he's a jovial guy. Like he's easy to root for if you take the betting stuff away, which hopefully is in the rearview mirror. But the Colts actually drafted him to be a big time kick returner because he led the NCAA in
Mhm.
kick return yards when he was at UMass, which he's very good at that if given the role. I don't know how much he's done that like with Philadelphia, but very good kick returner. He's kind of a spark plug type of defensive back. He's gonna give you kind of average play as a cornerback throughout the course of a game, but he's the type of guy that makes a lot of rare plays. He can make some interceptions and plays on the ball that not a lot of guys can. He even outsmarted Tom Brady on a play one time, kind of baited Brady into playing this downfield shot that Rodgers kind of played coy, like he wasn't going to be able to get to
Slow
it.
play, like
But
Dion'd it, yeah.
his recovery speed is incredible, and he picked off Brady back when he was with the Buccaneers.
Okay. Yeah,
Had
he
another
plays like a
really
guy that, like, knows he's faster than everybody
yeah,
else.
he's a very much a cat and mouse type of guy because he also made this really good interception during a preseason game as well, where again he just made himself look like he was out of position or wasn't going to be able to get to it, and then the quarterback threw it and he jumped it because his speed is incredible. He wasn't a combine guy. I think he either wasn't invited to the combine or it was like a COVID thing, whatever. But his like
Oh, because he came out in
pre-draft
2020.
workout pro day thing, he was clocked like in the 4.2s. He's got like legit elite speed. So if he starts for you, that he'll probably be fine. but what's really going to endear himself are the big plays. Like he can make a big play for sure.
That might be what they well for Flores for sure. That's what they like about him, especially like the recovery speed kind of thing, being able
Mhm.
to get from one place to another because there's like a lot of rotation stuff that they have to do. But hey, you guys didn't just get Bynum. There's another technically former Viking, and I want to hear about how the quarterback competition is going.
I think we all do. So yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson here in just a moment.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right. So the Colts absolutely lit the free agency world on fire when they made the monumental move of bringing in Daniel Jones, 1 year, 14 million.
Kind of ironically, they kind of ruined some people. Like the Daniel Jones being between the Colts and Vikings was like pretty well known. And then when the Colts took Daniel Jones, that was like the same day that people started talking about Aaron Rodgers. And then the whole world came to a screeching halt as everybody thought that it was like, oh, the Vikings are like really thinking about it. It just came out today that, it had been out for like a week if you listen to Locked On Vikings, but Tom Pelissero confirmed that Aaron Rodgers is not an option for the Vikings as of this moment. Unless something changes between now and whenever he signs with somewhere, he's probably going to the Giants or Steelers. But yeah, it kind of made like it like made people cock an eyebrow about what the Vikings are doing at quarterback. But it was, to me at least, always obvious that they were sticking with JJ McCarthy, and it was just about getting like a backup.
Big sigh of relief for you guys, I'm sure, because earlier in the offseason, when it was very well known that the Colts were going to have competition, some people were pointing at Rodgers like that makes no sense whatsoever. So
no, it doesn't. And what's interesting is some of the local reporting here in Minnesota implied that Daniel Jones chose the Colts because he thought that that was a more true QB competition situation than what he would be facing with JJ McCarthy in Minnesota. Like they're too committed in Minnesota, and he didn't feel like it was as real a chance as it was in Indianapolis, which I find fascinating because Anthony Richardson has proven more. I mean, JJ McCarthy hasn't played. Anthony Richardson has played. Maybe he struggled here and there, but that's crazy to me. So I really want to know. Plus, there's maybe a compensatory pick angle. If Daniel Jones wins the job and plays enough snaps, his compensatory pick could upgrade from a 5th to a 4th. And depending on how things shake out, I think his pick is going to get canceled either way. But if it doesn't, if somebody else signs for like more than we think or earlier than we think, then that could end up mattering for the Vikings. So we could end up watching your training camp with bated breath.
I'm sure. So I'll start by saying pretty much everyone in the organization wants Anthony Richardson to win. It's his competition to win. I think it's more about him losing the job than it would be Jones winning it. I don't anticipate Jones coming out and looking awful or clunky in camp. Like his style of play, I think will fit well with what Shane Steichen wants to do. Like probably not going to uncork as many shots downfield as Colts receivers have become accustomed to with Richardson and Flacco, but I think he would be capable of running just a ho-hum semi-productive offense that moves the chains. You're gonna get more of an erratic kind of roller coaster type of situation with Anthony, but I think with what they're looking for is number one, like how engaged are you? Like are you
is this like a light of fire? Is there a motivation question because of him like pulling himself out that one time?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the like tapping out thing, but I think they had noticed his tendencies and preparation just weren't to the level that they needed to be for a quarterback. Like
so it was more than the like I got tired thing.
Oh yeah, that wasn't. I think that was part of it. Like there's just a realization in being kind of an immature player. Again, they drafted him when he was like 20. There's a point you have to get to where you realize you're a quarterback and you are different. Like a running back can show up and do the bare minimum and still play on Sunday, and it's fine. Like he gets by, but the
Yeah.
quarterback has to know what
QB has to know.
he has to
everybody, yeah.
set an example. He has to know what everyone's doing, and he has to be the hardest worker on the team. And I think my understanding is probably just getting by with the bare minimum and just maybe wasn't conducting himself how you would want to see a quarterback do, because they've had in that building. I mean, obviously Peyton Manning, but no one is really still there from that. But Andrew Luck, tireless worker, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, like Joe Flacco, even they've seen what it's supposed to look like from a quarterback perspective. So I know when they benched him, they saw good results from that. Like he immediately kind of started turning things around and working like he was supposed to. But part of this is the injuries as well. Like he could win the job, go out there and play awesome, but then he has this perhaps chronic back issue. He's had the shoulder, he's had a concussion before. Like he could be playing at an all-pro level, and still we might need to see Daniel Jones because he gets knocked out for a game or two or more. Because obviously he only played four games as a rookie. So part of this is about being pushed and making sure that you're keeping him engaged and working as hard as possible. Part of it is you need insurance and someone who you could build a game plan around to win you games if Anthony is not going to be out there because of injury. So I do think Anthony's probably going to win. Just again, he's already there. They want him to win. They don't want him to fail. They're going to give him every opportunity to. So as long as he doesn't lose the job, basically, he's probably going to be the starter. As far as performance goes, I think he'd have to be a disaster in camp. I think they just want Jones to basically be a slightly upgraded version of Gardner Minshew is kind of what if I'm looking at it through my lens, just what I know about the Colts, it's kind of what
I think he can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, look, you're going to have to talk to Patricia if you really want to know about Daniel Jones. He never took a snap here.
She's on the list tomorrow.
Okay, great. But I mean, just from what I know from doing like Locked On NFL and just general observation, like I think as a backup, he's really well crafted because he'll be, if you tell him to be safe with the ball, he can execute that kind of game. That's sort of like dish it out. I mean, the 2022, the year that he was good on the Giants that got him paid, it was a lot of just dish it out to Saquon Barkley and Sterling Shepard and like, all these guys that can do stuff with it after the pass. So like, yeah, just like flip it out to Josh, like it can work. And I think in the event that Richardson goes down, you have the luxury of not being in the world where a lot of teams are if their starter goes down, where they go, well, I guess we're just losing these two, and it's like gravy if you manage to pull one out with your backup. Like I think he can play point guard and keep you in a game.
So another aspect to this, which you could probably divulge a bit, is Sam Darnold is obviously a huge success story. A lot of credit given to Kevin O'Connell and his staff there. Some people have pointed to who is the next Sam Darnold, if there is one,
Yeah, it could be
Justin Fields, Daniel Jones. So like he was only there for a short time, but like what benefit do you think Jones probably got being there with O'Connell and his group?
R&R. I don't think he did much here. He was pretty clear with like when he was basically choosing a practice squad because nobody wanted to take on his contract and nobody wanted to like put him on their active. So he was choosing a practice squad, and it was pretty clear that he was going to be like scout team. He was, locked in on meetings. He wasn't like being lazy or anything like that. But I think there is something really important that happened with Sam Darnold when he was a backup, a true backup in San Francisco. Brock Purdy, deadlock on the job. You were never going to start, right? He only played one game, and it was the meaningless because starters were resting. And I think a little bit of time where you don't have to be the guy or in a competition, Sam Darnold spent his whole career with the next day potentially being the day that he ruins his whole career. And that pressure made it so that he could never take a step back and like reflect on all the lessons he had learned from the mistakes that he made, because he always had to move on to being deadlock focused on the next day. And the hope, I think, for you guys would be that Daniel Jones was able to take a little time. He was required to do nothing in Minnesota. They asked nothing of him except for maybe to play a little bit of scout team quarterback or maybe even scout team safety like he did in New York, which is a common thing for practice squad QBs to do. And like being on the whiteboard meetings, and say, oh, well, I watch a little tape and say, I think their safety does this, that kind of stuff. But like, that's the most relaxed job Daniel Jones has had probably since he was in high school. And a little bit of time to reflect and regroup after, this super toxic situation in New York gives him maybe a little bit like that can allow him to learn a lesson from a memory that he had from the 2023 season that, he didn't even think about before. Like, I feel like that can matter to a guy. And if you look at Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, all these guys that resurrected, busted careers, they all have that. They all have that moment where they could like just kind of like get out of the spotlight for a sec. So that might be what Minnesota was there for him for. But honestly, I don't think that I don't think either side really needed anything from the other one. We really just wanted Daniel Jones in here as a consideration to being, the successor to Sam Darnold. But you offered, I think, too much money. And the Vikings, while they had a competitive offer, they also weren't willing to tell Daniel Jones that he had like too real of a shot at the job. And from there, I think Daniel Jones just kind of like hung out at the really nice facility. Like, I think he was here for the smoothie bar, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it comes to opportunity, like JJ McCarthy, we obviously haven't seen him yet, but he's supposed to be the future. So once he gets started, if it looks good, I'm just gonna like supplant him already. But this is kind of make or break for Anthony Richardson. He is,
Oh, for sure.
It's possible for him to be done if he doesn't win this job. So at least in Indy,
he's like what, 22? I don't know. I kind of like
young.
make or break for him with the Colts, but I do
With
feel
the
like
Colts,
there's a world if he loses this job, if he is a disaster in camp and he ends up getting, Josh Rosen traded for a mid-round pick to somewhere to be a backup for a couple of years. Well, now that's his moment to regroup and learn. And he's still so young and can grow. So I don't know. I liked him so much coming out of the draft. I'm not going to give up on him for a while.
Yeah.
Just on the basis of like young and learning.
There's a lot to like. It's about consistency with him because like he does so many brilliant things that you can't just find in every quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He's escaped sacks pretty much better than anybody. He has the clutch gene, which not everybody has. We've seen him come back. He doesn't get phased and he kind of fixes mistakes later in games. So like he doesn't often have a bunch of games that are complete disasters. Like he has had some, but like you've seen him be able to bounce back from things. And then the arm, obviously the arm talent and ability to make off platform throws is nuts. So those kind of things give you the hope that it's going to work out, but it's the routine plays in between all that you're really looking for. And hope this is kind of his first real off season that he's been able to just focus on like the next season and improving. Yeah.
Like hurt or just like rookie and deer in headlights. Yeah.
So, pre-draft prep 2 years ago, rehabbing the labrum last year, and now he's working out with Josh Allen and his quarterback coach now. So hopefully that's pretty beneficial. We'll see. But yeah, guys, lots of Colts and Vikings stuff to talk about. Maybe they're not done. You could see more moves be made on either side of this. But thank you for making Locked On Colts and Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Now we want you to go check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season's over, you guys can get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. The same can be said for us. Please, follow, rate, review, subscribe, whatever you want to do to us. We would very much appreciate it. And with that, you guys have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.